Hey guys, you're watching TechEdit. I'm Basil. This is the Infinix GT 20 Pro. It's a relatively affordable gaming phone, and yet it can play Genshin Impact back at 120 frames per second. If you know the game, it caps out at 60 frames per second on Android phones. So how does Infinix do this? Well, it does it with two chips, and I'll talk about them in a bit more detail in a second. But before I do, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do. And also thank you to Infinix for sponsoring this overview of the GT 20 Pro. Now, before I deep dive into the specifics, a quick overview of the phone. The two chips I was talking about are a MediaTek Dimensity 8200 Ultimate, which we know is an excellent gaming chipset for the price. It's also got a Pixelworks X5 turbo display chip, which is where all that upscaling happens, and the styling, gaming phone through and through. And there's also RGB lights around the back as well, and you can get a magnetic clip-on cooling fan that Infinix makes to really keep that gaming experience nice and chilly. With 256 gigabytes of storage and 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM and a 5000 milliamp battery with fast charging, spec-wise, across the board, this is super impressive, especially when you consider the price of this thing. If you're in Saudi Arabia, you can pick it up for 1,299 Rial, which translates to £275 or 345 US dollars. Now, while you can't pick it up in the UK, that's the imported price. It is available in a lot of regions in Africa and Asia, as well as Middle East. So this is the Infinix GT 20 Pro, and let's dive into the dual chipset and exactly what that means now. Like I said, at the helm there's a MediaTek Dimensity 8200 Ultimate. We've seen the 8200 before, only seen the Ultimate on the Tecno Camon 30 Premier, and it's performed really well. The GPU's a Mali G610 MC6 as well. So all of that comes together to make really excellent gaming. Benchmarking is one thing, sure, but day to day that means 60 frames per second, maxed out Genshin Impact. At 15-minute bouts, you get really consistent frame rates. If you're gaming for longer, drop the graphic settings to around medium, you'll still get really great performance. And at that price, it's really nuts. But then you have the Pixelworks X5 Turbo, and that chip doesn't just support frame rate upscaling, it also supports HDR upscaling as well. Now, if you're wondering how it upscales those frame rates, it interpolates between the frames and fills in the blanks. Now, this is interesting looking. It doesn't look like a traditional 120 frames per second high refresh rate display, but what it does look like is it looks like a super smooth gaming experience. And while you can't see that it's 120 frames per second using on-screen and in-device frame rate readers, I actually recorded it with a 120 frames per second camera set against an iPhone 15 Pro Max set at 60 frames per second, and you can see where the Infinix GT 20 Pro smooths things out and fills in the frame rates, which is again really nuts for a phone that costs a converted price of £275. When you swipe in that in-game menu, you can also activate esports mode, and this does a host of things to make your gaming experience more focused and just better. For starters, optimizations to CPU, GPU, touch sensitivity, and background processors as well. Also, that delivers more stable frame rates as well, and you can dial out distractions, which include even alarms and incoming calls, so nothing is going to get between you and your gameplay. That menu is also where you can activate HDR and upscaled frame rates as well, and bypass charging is on this thing, which means it's going to keep your phone at the same charge level without topping it up, which reduces heat buildup, which improves gaming performance. So even if you're running low on juice, you can still game without worrying about the phone overheating. I mentioned earlier that you've got either 8 or 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM on here, which is obviously flagship grade, so that's very cool. But you can also bump that up by grabbing some storage and turning that into RAM up to an additional 12 gigabytes, which this phone can have up to 24 gigabytes. That's just a lot. For a phone of this price with 256 gigs of storage, you're going to get loads of room for all your games, even big fat ones like Genshin Impact with that 30GB download. This is very clearly a gaming phone when it comes to styling. Around the back there's this like heavy mech kind of look. You've got RGB lights, a mecha loop is what Infinix calls it, 8 color combinations, 4 lighting effects, and when you're gaming you can actually see how hard your phone's working based on the color of the mecha loop RGB lighting, which is an interesting touch. And even though this phone has an expansive display, it isn't too big and heavy. It weighs just 194 grams and it's 8.15 millimeters thick. So pretty comfortable to hold. Like I said, those flat sides make it really great for long bouts of gaming. And the fact it's plastic might sound like a less than premium quality, but actually it means it really keeps its cool when you're gaming for long periods. Infinix told me there's loads of stuff going on inside that helps with that cooling system. I didn't crack this open to see exactly what's going on, but I can attest to the results. Played for hours on this thing and it didn't get uncomfortable at any point, which is really impressive. The screen's at the heart of why the Infinix GT20 Pro is such a good gaming phone, because you're looking at it all the time. It's an AMOLED panel, 6.78 inches, so really nice, big, immersive, 1300 nits, gets nice and bright as well, 144 Hz, super smooth. But because it's a flexible AMOLED panel, so Infinix can cut right into that frame. It has a 94.3% screen to body ratio. In addition, touch sampling rate of 360 means it's nice and responsive, and in the settings you can also tweak that responsiveness to suit your needs. All that also means, in addition to gaming, this phone's fantastic for watching on as well, and that's really where the dual speakers tuned by JBL come in. Sound is nice and expansive and immersive for a phone of this price. If you do want to keep your phone as cool as possible, Infinix has also launched the GT Fan for this phone. They also sent this case which has a magnetic mounting point, so you can clip it on like so at the perfect point for the GT20 Pro. But it also works with any phone with MagSafe support as well, and it's USB-C powered. Of course, this is a gaming phone, but it's also a smartphone, so there are a few things that it has to do well. For example, have a good camera, and the 108 megapixel camera around the back with OIS takes decent photos. Now, of course, this isn't going to be £1,000 camera phone level, but this phone can actually record 4K video at up to 60 frames per second, something significantly more expensive phones can't do. And a lot of that's also down to that excellent MediaTek Dimensity 8200 Ultimate supporting that. With a 5000 milliamp battery, I comfortably got a day out of this thing, and 45 watts fast charging means it powers up super quickly. And I even liked aspects of the phone's launcher, which I really wasn't expecting to. For example, Infinix does some really great stuff with the always on display that lets you incorporate your own artwork, a custom game image, for example, and integrate it into an always on display with a really nice blurred background for your home screen so you can easily see your icons, and then that AOD kicks in and it looks very cool. And so all things considered, like I've said many times, at the price, the Infinix GT20 Pro is a real steal if gaming is your #1 priority, and it works really solidly as a phone in general. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, learned a little bit about this phone that you didn't necessarily know before, or if you haven't heard of Infinix, this is definitely a phone that would put it on the map for a gamer on a budget. If you live somewhere where you can buy the Infinix GT20 Pro, let me know if you're thinking about picking one up in the comments section below. If you like the video, click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.